Hi, I'm Matt Nasser.
I'm Claudia Baez.
I'm Bartholomew Bland, and this is How Does the Art World Work? Or how does the art world work?
How does the art world work?
Exactly.
How? How does it work?
Does it work? And we're going to find out today because we're joined with our wonderful guest here, Jessica Stoller, who is having an exhibition. You may notice we're not in our usual studio. We are actually on location at PPOW, one of New York's most significant galleries. And so we're very happy that they're hosting us today. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you for your interest. Glad to be here.
We're happy to be here too. And we wanted to start out with a little bit about your...
Let's find out about the human body.
Sure. Sure.
How does it interest you? How is that? It's mostly the female body.
Correct. Yes.
Let's just dive in. Your take.
Yeah. I mean, I think this show is titled Split, and I kind of chose that word because I think it speaks to a lot of different things. I think the primary focus for also the large piece that I worked on for many years, Seeing Red, it was kind of a reaction to Roe v. Wade being overturned. So I'm thinking about split in terms of bodily autonomy, the way we split the reproductive body from the female body, pregnant person, in some states now giving the fetus embryo more rights than the person that is pregnant, which is insane. So I'm thinking about that split. I'm thinking about, the midlife split, perimenopause, menopause, like these changes that happen. I'm thinking about split, I think, in terms of the body and our relationship to nature, how we've kind of seen ourselves as a separate force, aside from nature, seeing nature and our environment as something inert that we can kind of act upon versus being intertwined with.
I was thinking really, the first thing when I was looking at the title of this exhibition was thinking about the sort of cellular idea of split and the sort of pulling a part of the organism itself.
That's true, yeah. And there is just a lot of the pieces are kind of visually split.
Well, the flowers here, and then the tiles, they're split. It's like an opposite.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I think in my work, I've always been interested in exploring kind of contradictory impulses, beauty and the grotesque, things that kind of seem on different spectrums, kind of intertwining them in the works together. So yeah, there's a lot of splitting. There's a lot of thinking about what it is to inhabit a body, my own body, my body as I'm getting older, what that means within patriarchy. I think one line that we used in the press release was from Miranda July's All Fours, where the gynecologist tells the protagonist, under patriarchy, your body is not really your own until you pass the reproductive age. So I found that really powerful. So I'm thinking about, all of these splits, my relationship to my body, what it means in this moment in culture.
Were you always a sculptor?
I have always I've been really enamored with ceramics since I was really quite young. It's pretty nerdy, but I really gravitated towards it in high school. I went to an all-girls Catholic school that was really intense.
And in Detroit?
In the suburbs of Detroit, yeah. And, in the suburbs, there's a lot of conformity, and it's all really, there's not a lot of in-between. And so I think when I was in my art classes, I had this teacher, Stephanie Samuels, and she was eccentric and weird. And I was like, wow, this is what you can be, this kind of person. I don't have to follow these tight roles or tropes. So I feel like seeing her talking about art, this is something you can do was really powerful for me.
When you started with ceramics, because that's unlike going perhaps into the art world through drawing or painting, which have their own techniques, ceramics is something that's very highly technical, and you sort of need a lot of equipment to work with. Did you think about ceramics in terms of a utilitarian value when you started, or did you know right from the beginning that you were going to do sort of pure sculptural forms?
Yes, that's a great question. Yeah, I think there's so many tracks in ceramics. It's the industrial side, the designing side, the potter side, utilitarian sculptor. I was really never interested. I definitely have like, some vases and mugs that I've made, but I think I was never interested in functional work. I was really always interested in making sculptural things. Yeah.
And porcelain must be really hard to bake and to deal with, no?
Yes. I mean, I think also the thing that has kept me engaged with the material, although my work has changed a lot over the years, is it's just like so endless, the global history of ceramics, like what ceramics has looked like dependent on different times and places and regions and clay bodies and firing techniques. It's truly endless. So I feel like I'm always, I think people think like, wow, it seems so complicated, but I'm like, no. There's so much more. There's always so much more to learn in terms of like techniques and firing processes and,
What were you going to say, Matt? Matt wanted to say something.
Yeah.
He hasn't said one word.
Well,
It's your turn.
Well, okay.
He's staggered by the beauty.
I'm staggered by the beauty. I just heard a quote from Stephen Sondheimer. He was talking about tenets of making art, and he thought one of his tenets is let the content define the form and style. And so I thought about ceramics talking about the female body, and I thought it was a perfect form, a perfect art form to talk about the female body, and because of the material nature of it. And so I guess my question is it the chicken and the egg? Is it, I mean, you're a woman and you have these feelings and you're expressing them through this medium. The question is, I guess, have you been drawn to these subjects through your artwork, or has the subject sort of expresses the work? I don't know if,
Yeah, that's a good question. When I'm teaching students, I always do this fun thing, and like, what came first in terms of ceramic objects, like historic objects that we found in terms of archaeology? Like, is it a kind of fertility image? Is it like cuneiform, which is kind of a, ceramic tablets that have some kind of stylized text, with language? Or is it pottery? And it's like 25,000 BCE. I'm probably botching that, but like the oldest object that we have in clay is a fertility image. So I do think that this innate need to like express.
I think we've all seen that.
Yeah.
The Venus and Willendorf.
I think it's a different Venus. I should know this, but it's interesting that is like,
but that was
oldest.
Made out of clay, right?
Yeah, clay.
So porcelain appears in the map when? It must be much later, right?
Yes, much later. And porcelain also has this really fascinating history in terms of like Asia. I think technically, ceramics people don't come after me if I'm wrong, but I think technically it was first originated in China and then Japan. In Korea, of course, when those borders were different, it kind of traveled, but China is kind of, because of the kaolin deposits, so a lot of different ceramic traditions, firing methods, materials are dependent on what materials are literally kind of mined and found in those areas. So China came up with it first, and then Europe was obsessed with that and tried to emulate it. And so there's, I think in older work, I was really interested in that process of, in a way, ceramics too becomes like one of the first cross-cultural materials in terms of like having this value and cultures kind of trading and speaking back to each other and imitating. And so, there's so much there.
There's too much.
But it's really interesting.
We need to ask you how the art world works.
Sure.
We need to find out how do you get to be exhibiting at PPOW? What's your, where do you start first? Where was your first show? And then how do you get the connection to be in this fabulous gallery, which is a very feminist gallery?
Yes.
Right? It's very much for women. And
I feel like,
there's also male shows here. I think, but it's a very feminist place.
Yeah, I think I really...
We want your secrets.
Yes, I know. I don't have any secrets. I think, I really not dreamed, but like I kind of envisioned myself working with them because there was so many artists that they showed that I admired so much. I think their commitment to feminist political work, women run, like they're an enigma doing this for decades.
Mhm.
So, so yeah, I feel like I took once a workshop about the art world, and one of the prompts that we had was like, what gallery or what context where do you envision yourself? And it was like, and I was like, oh, PPOW, of course, So in a way it was interesting, and I think a good practice to kind of think about what context your work really actually does make sense
So you
in.
made a cold call? You were
No,
right
I
with the
didn't make a
sculpture?
cold call. A lot of scheming and plotting. I had a friend that I made who worked at PPOW, and I had a show where we got the the OW to come to the show, and where I sent the publication, the printed matter that we had. So we were scheming together, and then they came to the show.
And this is now your third show with PPOW, third solo show. So it's been a fruitful relationship.
It's been
for
good.
you.
Yeah, I'm super happy about it. It's great. They're the best.
So when you were early on in your career, were you doing your own PR, so to speak? Were you, because a lot of artists are not extroverted naturally. They're not going to sort of promote themselves.
Yes.
And a lot of people, I think, toy with getting a professional PR person. I don't know how fruitful that is on some occasions. What were your experiences with that?
Yeah, I am not good at promoting myself. I think that's why it's great to work with a gallery, or I don't know, to strengthen that muscle. I think you do, maybe I think there's also different roads. If you're not like, into social media, I think then maybe you are more of a in-person. I feel like I'm better in person, like doing things in an organic way versus like, look at me. So I just feel like there's different roads, there's different ways. But yeah, I think you do, or you have great friends. I have many great artist friends that will plug me, so I feel like, that can be something when maybe you are in front of someone and you are shy, then you have like a nice, group of peers.
It's always nice to see artists working together. When you're curating a large thematic show, it's always really nice when artists recommend other artists to you as the curator. I think that's it's a very supportive kind of.
Yeah.
Before you mentioned the word political, and I've always been curious, and we've never addressed this issue, and these times that we're living right now, which are call for political action, I'm wondering how much an artist can actually affect the politics. How much does it, like this gallery is political, like you said.
Right.
But how much can anything change with art?
I know. But I think like for this piece, particularly, it was like my way to
fight Roe versus Wade. It's like you're furious and you're gonna do something.
I need to do,
yes, and it's fantastic. I mean, it's a fantastic piece. I love it.
Yeah,
I love the pearls, the humongous pearls. They are pearls.
Yes, they're giant
I
pearls.
love the pearls, and I love all the. I mean, I'm intrigued by everything that's on top of the red tiles, red pink tiles. All the objects you put on top it's intriguing to me. What does it mean? What does the frog mean? What does the fish mean?
Yes.
I'm curious.
Sure.
And the snake, so you could tell us about that. That'd be interesting.
But yeah, that's a good question. I think it's always this dilemma in terms of political engagement. Like, I don't think it's ever all or nothing. I think there's like, your action does have meaning. And I think it's a visual language. So people are seeing it, I at the opening, people I saw were having like emotive responses to it, which was really powerful to me. But yeah, I think a lot of it it's kind of my way to process the world, and hopefully other people seeing it find something in it. But yeah, maybe going to the march and supporting, whatever candidate, or there's like all other things, obviously I should be doing too, trying to do.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think it's just like one
and one of the
part.
problems is the hermetic quality of the art world, and sort of how do you break out from it? And it seems to me, because I'm not naturally a creature of social media, I've always sort of bemoaning social media in a way, but it seems to me the only viable way to sort of to push out that message politically, because I think a lot of times someone who's going to step foot in such an august gallery as this, they're probably politically aligned with you from the moment they set
Right.
foot through the door. So the
Yeah.
argument, you're not doing the convincing
I know.
there.
Well, it
at
all
that
depends
point.
where they're going to. Sorry
Where
to
they-
talk on
No,
top
no,
of you.
That's all right.
It all depends where they're going to place the pic. It could go somewhere where it
Right.
means
Yeah.
something.
It can have a
you
life
know?
after. Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, that is the
Yeah.
point of the
That is
endeavor.
the way,
yes.
yes.
And
Yeah.
No,
wanna
it
serve
will.
that-
I'm
Yeah.
sure it
You
will.
want to serve that community that does come to the gallery
Yeah.
because we need places to be together in this time, I think,
Yeah.
too.
Well, it's
Yeah.
interesting. Have you ever sort of explored the avenue of public art through ceramics?
but
is that the goal, or
Yeah, I'm always actually. That's funny you ask. I was just looking at the MTA. I know the MTA. You know, that would be like that's also would be a dream. You know, to have one of the public art installations. But yeah, totally. I think art should not be
Did you hear about
reliquated.
that? Did you hear that they wanted to get rid of
Oh gosh.
in Washington? They want to get rid of the Black Lives Matter.
Oh yeah.
oh, they've already
Board?
painted
I
over
think
the
that,
mural?
yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
already
It's
painted
gone.
over.
They did it already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think that was like contingent on some
I'm behind
funding
on
or
the
something.
Yeah.
news. That is terrible.
Yeah.
I've noticed, like in the last 10 years, ceramic art has really taken off, and it's your moment as an artist. And you said you were always interested in the art, being an artist through this medium, which I
Yeah.
think is rare.
Mm.
People coming to ceramics wanting to make
Yeah.
vases and mugs
Sure.
and things like
Yeah.
that, and teachers encouraging that more than
Yeah.
artwork.
Right.
Was it a struggle at the beginning of your career to get seen?
Yeah, I think in a weird way, yes. I think ceramics has definitely had a moment. I think it's like the market finally being like, oh yeah, maybe we shouldn't push this whole material to the sideline, which is crazy. But I think in a way in New York, I always found that being a ceramics person, it was just like, whoa, how do you do that here? You know, because it's so intense here in general. And it's like, whoa, what, you have a kiln? I mean, in terms of materials, you need a kiln, but clay is rather inexpensive. In theory, you could be digging the clay, or processing the clay yourself if you really wanted to be a purist about it.
Do you think that's leading to larger pieces? Like I'm thinking about seeing red behind you in the shots here. That's on something on a fairly grand scale.
Yes.
Do you think there's a push towards that with contemporary ceramicists?
I mean, I think for me, I'm still working with my not very large electric kiln. So I always, talk to my students about ceramics. It's like painting and sculpture combined, and then engineering. So like, think of the form and the surface, but also like, how's it going to stand? How are we going to pick it up? What is the weak point? So, it's bigger, but those are all still small components made in the same size kiln as everything else. So that has been my way to get at larger scale.
So something at a very prosaic, practical thing. When you sell this piece, I mean, do you tell the collector, the institution, I mean, is it transportable and does it break down into its component parts?
Yes,
so you're always thinking about that.
No, nothing. This is all, it's like 100 tiles and then 20 something pearls and then all these other objects. I labeled all the tiles and then carefully crawled on top and placed the thing. So it's all
it's transportable.
Portable.
And so there's a political element to the work, and we're talking about selling it. So does that even come into your head, or you're just like, I want to make this beautiful thing, and someone will find it beautiful?
Yes, that's where I'm like, thank you PPOW for doing a lot of this. They connect the work to the place, hopefully the museum, the larger institution. They're interfacing in that way, which is another amazing thing. So it kind of relieves the burden from you, but I think I'm not really thinking about that. Like, what is the market for? I am just like, if I want to make the weird crone birthing a 3-headed cat, or the piece with gray hair, or like the whatever weird impulse I have, I just follow that. And I really do not think about the market, because I don't know. I also teach. So I feel like in a way I've kind of, that helps me. I have income that is, stable. They've gainfully employed me for several years now. So that has been great. So I don't have such like I feel like, that can be difficult. And in general, too, some years are better than others. Maybe you sell many works one year and then another year is not so great. So, I think everybody has to figure out what their budget is, what their overhead is, what their threshold.
Yeah, and you just concentrate on doing what you feel like doing.
Yeah.
Whatever calls your fancy. I think that's fantastic.
That
So then
frees me up.
The form and the other part is the style. So I feel like I'm not very well. I'm not an expert on this style of ceramic, but it felt like that Rookwood period in a way. I was seeing a lot of that, and I like, what is that, the 20s?
Well, I was just thinking about this piece, Hourglass, right behind you, Matt, in the shot, which seems to be extremely, I mean, I can see some of the Rookwood influence, but very Art Nouveau in the way it's lighting and the tension in the work. And it seems quite different than a lot of the other pieces in the show. And I was wondering about that. Do you consider this a kind of suite of work that you've picked out of a larger body of work? Do you work with a curator or gallerist here?
Yeah.
And are you picking the work specifically because I noticed this exhibition is beautifully laid out. It's not overhung. The rhythm of the installation is gorgeous. And how much of that are you thinking when you're creating new work? Are you thinking about the space where it's going to go?
Yes, it is truly. I have many painter friends, and they just make the paintings and they put it on the wall, and they do not have to think about the exhibition design. And that's another way that PPOW, specifically shout out Trey Hollis. He is so good. They, also Wendy, Ella, the people here at the gallery, they know the space so well, but Trey specifically from PPOW, I kind of worked with on the pedestal designs. They kind of interface with the fabricator to figure out what makes sense. They also know this space very well. So like, what can hold the room? Yes, less is more. The works are intense and there's a lot going on. Let's not, even though they're small, I hope they have a large presence. So I'm not like inundating you with,
They are vivid. I mean, in terms of their detail, they sort of demand the.
So I feel like, they are really good at that, because otherwise I'm just moving things around in the model and it's like, I don't know.
And is your inclination, can't we just put one more in? Or are you sort of pair back?
Yeah, no, I'm a fan of the pair back.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Because I think it makes things speak louder and.
Well, there's sort of the detail in them and the sort of Victoria, almost sort of neo-Victorian quality in some of them, I think is really powerful with the just plain white aesthetic, I think that really.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think it's always like, how much do you think about the pedestal and but
so what is the difference between the Hourglass and the others? That is true that it's different. Is it a different paint?
No.
More matte paint?
I think it's, so all of them except this piece are pretty much
same glaze,
clay,
same clay.
a clear glaze, and then I China paint everything. So China paint is like this overglazed material. If you think of Judy Chicago's Dinner Party,
yes,
all of those crazy pieces, those are all China painted. And China paint also has this history of,
it's a special paint, China paint.
Yeah, I think that's like kind of a weird term because of its popularity in the US once the electric kilns were more popular. But there's definitely like a gendered hobbyist craft component. I think Judy Chicago is really genius in, in making the Dinner Party, that she like worked with all these China painters and like this language of older women painting plates that was kind of like separated from the art world. I think she tapped into all of that and then learned this great process that she then applied to that piece. So yeah, you paint things and fire them, paint things and fire them. So yeah, some of the colors.
So you can paint again when it comes out?
Yeah, so I paint everything a lot. So it's quite painterly versus a glaze. A glaze you like put on generally like once.
And it's
fire it. And it's kind of heavy and it's very glassy, versus the China paint you can be much more.
You can fire it again.
Yeah, detailed and fire it again and do weird stuff.
That's so interesting.
Have you ever combined in your sculptural work sort of metallic elements, or paper elements? Have you moved
materials?
Yeah,
I like using like luster, which there's some things that look like silver. That's like another overglaze. I kind of like being a weird purist about it.
Oh, I thought that was metal.
Yeah, no, it's all clay.
It's pink.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of like some kind of Trump Lloyd thing where the thing looks like the thing, but it's maybe not. But yeah, I don't know. To me, I'm really into the ceramics. Yeah.
Do you want to explain to us the sculpture, the one that I call the grasshopper, but it's called
Sure.
Pin?
Yes, pinned. Yeah, I can. I mean, I think this show with this piece, Seeing Red, I was thinking a lot about these splits and bodily autonomy. And I think that kind of put me on this rabbit hole of like, thinking about different texts as influential to the work and how that developed. And I think one area that I got very interested in was how we have always pathologized the female body, how it has been like clinically understudied. And I could go on and on about that, but I think this piece, I wanted to have this kind of like, it's supposed to be like this weird bug woman.
Looks like a grasshopper to me.
Yeah, grasshopper bug. Yeah, it's a bug insect-like, but in these stirrups.
In the stirrups.
Yeah, so, and it's kind of split and doubled. I wanted that blue to kind of evoke like that papery cloth that you wear at the doctor.
Yes.
So, like a bug that is, pinned this kind of way that, the body has been made specimen, made kind of object in a way that has been very detrimental. So I guess that is kind of what I'm thinking about with that piece.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I saw it and I'm like, yeah, I know, I've been there. I've been in that position.
Yes,
I know what that feels like.
Yes.
I never thought of myself as a grasshopper, but I will the next time.
Yes. My
I will
Kafka.
definitely feel like
The
a
female
grasshopper.
grasshoppers eat the male head off when they're finished mating.
No,
so-
that's not the grasshopper. That's
Isn't that?
It's a praying mantis.
Oh, praying mantis. They look like grasshoppers.
Yeah.
No.
It's
Okay,
kind
it's
of a
a praying
hybrid.
mantis.
It's a praying
It's
mantis.
a little. It's
So you can do that. We can
Yeah.
make it positive. Call it positive. I have a ceramicist it's gonna show an artist that's gonna show at the gallery
Oh, cool.
in June,
Cool.
and this is gonna be her first exhibition
Oh,
ever.
awesome.
So I would like to know if you have any
Yeah.
advice for an
Sure.
artist who's starting out in the art world and having their first show.
Yeah, it's sculpture or it's works.
It's going to be sculpture. Yes, it's she's kind of bridging that where there's sculptural. There'll be like sort of mug vase,
Okay.
sculptural
Yeah.
pieces, but they're
Yeah.
also very crazy and
Yeah.
Hot take. Is it vase or vase?
Oh,
It depends. It depends.
What did I say?
You said vase.
Yeah.
If it's hyperlithic,
Yeah,
uptown is a vase.
yeah, I think so. It depends.
in my Bronx, New York,
Way uptown. Yeah.
it's vase.
Yeah, I mean, I would say one thing that has also been very beneficial to me as I've been in the art world adjacent is like having your peers, your cohort, your group. I feel like, because there's all of these external factors that can change. And like, I think if you have a core group of other artists that you are engaged with, that you support each other, like that can really be sustaining. So I don't know, I think, and also celebrate, the success of like mounting a show. I think putting together a body of work and having a show, like, I think our culture, especially the art world, it's like, what did you do? You did this? I have people asking me, what are you doing next? It's like, fuck you. Fuck you. Can I just relax a bit? Like, I've been working on this a long time. And I just think it's like, no, we can just slow down. We can just really be present in this moment, take in what an accomplishment that is. So I would say, appreciate where you've been, what you've accomplished, and like build your people,
That's a great.
Well, do you think that's hard for a lot of artists because they're so fixated on being in the studio? I mean, when you were building your coterie of artists, were you going to a lot of openings? Were you on the scene? Were you going to their studios? What were you doing? How were you meeting people?
I feel like I have been for many years now. A friend of mine from grad school, we started this group, like a critique art group. And so, I think we just saw the need outside of school to like continue that dialogue. And then as I started working at PPOW, I met many great people that I, really admire. So I feel like I've kind of been like, oh, I love your work. We should be friends. Sometimes you've got to really make the pitch, like, the show is really great. Like, let's do a studio visit. So I think we have kind of carved out our own group. We support each other. We do studio visits, go to shows. So yeah.
And they're coming here very soon.
They're coming
right?
here very soon. Yeah. So that's very exciting because I feel like, hearing them talk about the work will be very different than, us talking about the work. They've maybe known the work for longer or see, different threads. So yeah, I find that really important when there's so many other variables that are like.
So with these porcelains, you can add things to them as you go, like you bake it and then you can bake it again? No. It has to be done first.
Well, yeah, it depends on the piece. Most of them are, I make the whole piece, but then for some of them, maybe I'll have other parts that I'll like glue in or.
Let's talk about yellow wallflower, which we're looking at here. I mean, is that a piece where you've added in the flowers as a garland individually, sort of piece by piece, sort of done that and then fired it, or
there's like
done as a unit?
I think that is in 3 pieces. So there's like a flat slab under it, and then I attach it. But then I do try and make it look like it's one seamless thing, and I do make other pieces that I fit in there. So yeah.
These flowers, they remind me what my mother used to do. Yeah, they used to work with bread. Remember?
Yeah,
I don't know. You're much younger than me, but my mother used to have a class where they would work with bread.
That's interesting.
With dough, and they would make flowers and stick them on a wire. And then painted them. And they looked beautiful. They were great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot.
Is that something like that? No, you had no idea. You never saw this.
Not dough, but I think ceramic or porcelain and sugar has a very complicated, interesting history. But a lot of, the kind of malleability of a sugar or different food, like fondant, for example, like a lot of those tools you can use in ceramics. So there is a weird food, and that's also older work where I explored it a lot. There is a weird overlap.
People do eat clay.
Right, yeah.
I had a roommate who did that, and I thought, are you okay?
Well, that's not great.
I have a question. Is when we were talking about ceramics having their moment, one of the things I noticed is that a lot of the people using ceramics are not ceramicists themselves, but a kind of scavenged quality of elements of ceramics, whether it's done in collage or I'm thinking about like a lot of Nick Cave's large scale pieces, which are found ceramics. Do you see that a lot, or have you been tempted to, take elements of historical ceramics and sort of incorporate that into your work?
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm very inspired by some historical objects. Like I think one piece that was really inspirational to me was this breast bowl from the 18th century, Marie Antoinette's dairy, blah blah blah, based off a Greek form. I don't know. I feel like I want to create my own, because I feel like there's such, and I think Nick Cave and those pieces is like synergizing like so many things together. I don't know. I feel like the weird idea I have in my mind of pairing things or like form or shape. I don't know. I feel like I'm more excited by the form or the image that hasn't existed before.
What does it mean, this one? Mirror. We only have 5 more minutes left.
The mirror.
Let's hear about mirror.
Mirror. Yeah, that is a strange one.
Very strange.
I kind of I think this other piece, multiply. I was thinking a lot about reproductive body, unwanted pregnancy, like feeling like you don't have control over these things. Also endometriosis, which has historically been very understudied or misdiagnosed, or like at one point was called like the career woman's disease, something really insane. So I was thinking about that. And I think with mirror, they are these kind of strange embryos. So they're like, human-esque, but I wanted them to kind of like be this other image where they kind of it maybe looks like a skull. I don't know. I like that it was open for interpretation. And I think in this piece too, all of that like undulating movement, I was very interested in, and there's a piece in the back with these hands, this, I think like Dutch metal work technique from the 17th century. I'm blanking on the name, but the word comes from like the cartilage of the ear. It's basically like a deck arts technique that is very sinuous, and it's like very bodily. So it's kind of like creating all these I don't know, this weird movement and positive and negative space. So in a way, I feel like this piece, I was also kind of employing that, where it's these curves, but there's something also decorative, but bodily, but strange. So yeah, I think when I realized this metalsmithing like period, I was like, wow, that's crazy. Good inspiration. So yeah, they're strange fetuses.
Very interesting. But you're right about how we don't have, well, we do have control over our body, but we don't know it so much.
Right.
We need to know, we need to be aware that it's really what we're thinking, our mind, you know?
Well, and then this piece, this was my other revelatory moment. I named this Mount O'Connell. This is like basically a giant clitoris, like that shape, that organ. Because
and it has eyes.
I think this one, well, that's kind of a smaller version. Yeah, that's, you're right. This was the kind of an earlier version I did of this. But I learned also in my research that, it wasn't until 2005 or something that a urologist basically discovered like the true size of the clit, that it was always thought to be this tiny thing. And it's like, no, in fact, it is giant, and it's like mostly under the vulva. And it's basically like had never been studied, had never been researched, had never been fully.
2005?
2005! Yes. So I don't know. So there's some positive, some like, so yeah, there's a lot of different threads in the show, but that's my strange clit.
But Claudia, I was really struck when you said we do have control over our bodies in some way, because I think aside from the political moment that we're in, I mean, your work to me speaks to a sort of a broader and existential idea, and perhaps age is one of these things, where none of us have any control over our body. It's just kind of illusory, or we can try to force it to do what we want it to do for a little short period of time. But then it's sort of, the kind of at war with your physical self.
I disagree 100%.
Really?
Well, I really do think, like, for example, I know when my brother is giving me cancer, I know when I have a phone call that is causing some internal combustion in my stomach, and I know to stay away from it. You have to know, you have to be aware. You have to be aware that your mind really is what controls your body. I mean, not 100%. Right. I agree. Not 100%. Yeah. I mean, whenever I enter...
Well, the mortality that we all get to die.
Menopause, menopause just hit me. It was just one of these days. One day you're not menopausal, and the next day you're menopausal. So it's like, that wasn't something that I controlled, I don't think, even though I do enjoy menopause.
That's good.
I'm young and healthy, and so are you.
Is that from 42nd Street?
Yes. Well, these pieces will not age. They are beautiful and timeless. And for that, I'll say I'm Matt Nasser.
I'm Claudia Baez.
I'm Jessica Stoller.
I'm Bartholomew Bland, and this is How Does the Art World Work?
We'll still ask. Next time. Thank you.
Thank you.